Hello, Curious Creatives out there. This is Mike Kepka, the Curious Creative, coming to you with another episode of the podcast where we talk about results-driven video strategies that show real results for our clients. Today, we have with us Beth Klepper, founder and owner of Mainstream Video Productions based in Littleton, Colorado. Her company caters to B&B and focuses on charter schools in Colorado. She has a master's in film and visual cultures from Middlesex University in London and cut her teeth producing hundreds of live shows for a network owned by your favorite shark baller, Mark Cuban. For years, Beth delivered straightforward video production methods to her clients, but like many of the other guests on my show, she too has pivoted to a results-oriented approach to video content. Now she is soon to launch these new services for her clients, and watch out because this is going to be huge. Beth, it is so good to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Excited to be on the Curious Creative podcast.
You're listening to The Curious Creative with your host and video expert, Mike Kepka. Beth, good to have you here. Tell me about Mainstream. Where were you and where are you headed? Because we just mentioned this big pivot. I want to know all about it.
Yes, I started Mainstream in 2014 and I came from television. So I was a producer. I did not run camera. I wasn't an editor. I was the general contractor of shoots. And I had zero business experience, but I wasn't afraid to talk to people. So that's how I started Mainstream, is just I was going to go to the market and produce whatever people wanted, which, spoiler alert, not a very good business plan. In the 11 years we've been in business, we've had to obviously find our market, who we really work with, our specialty and our differentiator. And it's been, we've had a recent pivot, probably the biggest pivot since we started with Tim in last year at this time, little September of 24. But we've been pivoting a lot in those years, just trying to really feel out the market for video. I'm very passionate about the video medium. I think since I started, and certainly in the last 20 years, there's been so many technological advances, and it makes people really excited. It makes businesses really excited about using video and really confused about it. So that's one of the ways that we differentiate ourselves is, we are going to be really approachable about video. We're going to be no nonsense about video. We're going to tell you when you can use an iPhone, when you can use Zoom footage, when you can, not have expensive production crews, and when you really do need all of those things.
So it sounds like you're really on the level of anybody who's looking for video, right? Not over talking and making sure that they don't feel intimidated by fancy whatevers. And then the rest of that's probably behind the scenes, right?
100%. Very down to earth as far as our approach to video.
Okay, so we started the conversation by saying what you were doing was not a very good business.
That's right.
So what was the fault of that, and where are we headed?
Well, I think the fault of it was, what do you want to produce? I sell it. And when you have a market that is being sold, apps, free editing apps, consumer grade editing apps and cameras on their phone, you really have to be the expert and you have to know what they need. I really struggled because, to be candid, Mike, I took it a little personally. I took it personally on your behalf, on all of the creatives I'd worked with at the network's behalf, that people think that they could just grab a camera and do what we all do. And then, the teacher in me, I also have been a teacher for the last 10 years. And the teacher in me is very much like, okay, let's meet them where they're at. Let's answer their questions so that they can get to the next step, so they can understand what it is they don't really know about this. And that's been our approach moving forward. That's still a big part of how I operate and how I do business. I do a lot of, keynote speeches, maybe not keynotes, but a lot of speaking, a lot of, education on video and the video medium. And our business, our bread and butter is, we need to make videos, professional videos, and they have to be with communications teams, organizations that have enough of the infrastructure to really have the infrastructure and the resources to power a video team. So business-wise, we've switched gears to, okay, who are we working with that actually has the need and budget for this? And then on, the other side, just continuing to educate as many people as possible. Because the more you do, the more results you get, the more you can up-level your production. It's that simple.
Right. I think, for me, going through a very similar process, the conversation has changed.
Yeah.
And I think that I was interested. You said you felt bad on behalf of people like me, and I think you mean, so I'm background is as a DP, so I
Right.
often go off on side projects on other people's sets and do as fancy as it needs to be, and everything in that camera looks good, and that's why they pay me the money. But to justify the expense of all those people on crew is sometimes really hard for people only looking at the dollar sign, especially I think when you're talking about fancy apps and AI things
Yep.
and interns who supposedly can do anything, but that's a lot of pressure on them. It's unfair. Um, I think when I said the conversation has changed, now I look at the kind of content we're creating. And then when we meet with them, the first time we're creating actually a projection to show what they're going to get out of it.
Right.
And that is instant value. And so they can put at the very least, a dollar sign or a conversion rate on what they're paying for. And in so many ways, it seems like I'm not charging enough. I don't know about you, Beth, but like, I mean,
100%.
if I charge them based on a production fee for our first batch of content creation, and I am projecting stuff that's like 10 times that, it seems like I just need to get better at pushing that value. But I think that's where you talked about the more you do it, the more case studies you have, the more confident you get, and the more you can show that those clients, that's what you're worth, right?
Totally. And I think the more the clients do it and show the results. I think the biggest probably aha in the last couple of years for me has been video is this weird thing. We have it for entertainment. Like a lot of us are watching Netflix, we're streaming stuff, we love video. So people are familiar with it. They probably film their vacations or they have their own, social media apps. So they have this experience with video as it being this like cool entertainment thing, or just in general, we've all been watching video our whole lives. Video for business is a different animal altogether. The businesses that we're working with are still made up of people. So they're still the people that are watching Netflix at night or have a niece that's got a cool social media channel or whatever that is. So they come to it with some sort of preconceived notion about what it takes or what's involved or what's cool. But the business of it is a whole different thing. When it comes to making a decision on what you're going to create, how much you're going to spend on what you're creating, the business, like all that cool, interesting stuff about the shots in, Ozark are irrelevant when you don't have clarity on like, what is this actually going to produce for my revenue, for my bottom line. And once you get clear on that, then you can start to have fun with the creative. But otherwise, it's just this like very confusing pool of ideas and that goes nowhere. That's been my experience.
Tell me about how the conversations changed for you. So now that you're able to, I'm guessing, dictate a little bit more of what kind of content should be shot on behalf of your client, how are they receiving that? Are they understanding what you mean? Do you have to explain the whole 0 to 100 for them, or?
It totally depends on the client. I mean, that's what's exciting to me about video is it's like this wild west, I feel
Mhm.
like, with anybody. Like I just met with a $70 million company. They have one marketing person and basically a PowerPoint that is recorded and like loops. That's their video strategy. And they know that they can't stay competitive with that. Like they
Mhm.
they have to make some changes. They don't know, one of the first questions I ask Mike when I talk to people is, okay, do you guys know what B-roll is? Like, does that mean anything to you? Really understanding where people are coming at it. Some of our companies, they've been on shoots, they're marketing people, they know all about this stuff. So you want to meet them at their level and talk about it in that way. And then some people genuinely have really very little understanding of how this whole thing comes together. That said, one of the things I've been saying, since I started, because like as I mentioned, I'm a producer. So when I worked at the TV network, we always knew exactly before we produced anything. We knew the time slot it was going to be. We knew the total runtime. We knew everything about the audience before we ever produced a show. And I think a lot of businesses don't think about that. They don't think about, okay, where is this going? How are people seeing it? What do we want people to feel after watching it? So that was kind of the first way I approached it, was like, okay, before we talk about all your cool ideas and what you should shoot and who's going to be on camera and what camera you need, let's talk about where is this going to go and how people, like what the goal is of the video, because otherwise you're not going to hire me. So that was kind of the first, like the way that I'd always approached it, just because I don't know how to make video without those two questions answered personally. So your company probably doesn't know how to make video without those questions answered. So that was kind of the first. But then it became, more sophisticated. The conversation changed to like, okay, great. I put this video on our homepage and we loved it. I tell this story about how I had a customer who loved working with us. He's done a testimonial for us on video. He, is a great client. And, last year they had a down year and we talked about doing videos. He's like, yeah, all of our videos that we want to do, we can't afford video. We don't have any discretionary income. And that was a big moment for me where I was like, this guy who loves working with us, who loves video as a medium, is still thinking about this discretion. Like it's a nice to have.
It's a novelty project.
100%. It's a novelty project with businesses with extra money in the bank they need to.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, that is so not how he doesn't, number one, understand how video is really working in his business. Or he doesn't, we haven't been able to show him how, more importantly, we haven't been able to show him. And that's kind of like around that time is when I met Tim. And like, so when I talk about that video that that they do about, who's in charge of the metrics, like that was like, he had been reading my journals or my deepest thoughts. Cause I was like, how do we show this? How do we make this case? I know it's there, but how? And that, I always knew that was important to buyers. And now we finally have here's how we do it.
For those of you who don't know Tim, Beth is talking about Tim Jarvis, who I started a while back with under sort of a mastermind program, but now he has started an agency called Film and Content. And I have partnered. Beth, have you partnered with him on that project too? Or
yes, definitely.
Yeah. So basically he is years into the making of case studies and running campaigns with data and is proving these returns time after time. So we're actually employing him on our side to make sure that's all taken care of. So it's amazing for me because I get to talk about creative and I get to say this is something we offer, which is win, 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 win. I can't be more excited about that. Tell me about your own campaign, because I heard last time we were on the phone, you didn't want to run any of these services by anybody until you made it work for yourself. And I said, you're getting ready to launch. Where are you now with your own campaign? What's the goal and what was the process to get you there? And we're specifically talking about AC/DC strategy content, which again, for people who've been tuning in, they would know that means awareness, consideration, and decision. It's another way to say buyer's journey. It's a funnel. Awareness is our first line of defense. It's broad stroke educational stuff to get people engaged. They engage there, we send them more video until we get to decision, and then they're much more likely to convert. But tell me how you approach that for your own company, because I think that's something that, like, I got into this whole idea because I was waiting for people to call me on the phone.
Sure.
And they didn't call me on the phone. We had COVID, they stopped calling, all the regulars, like we don't have any discretionary income anymore to employ your vanity projects, sir.
Your frivolous little marketing tool.
It is so empowering. That's all I got to say, is that I can't wait to get in front of another person to pitch, because there is that aha moment you mentioned. Their eyes pop open and they go, Yahoo! I want that. So tell me what your goals are for your own strategy, AC/DC style now.
So AC/DC, I feel like I learned that whole concept early on. And I am, definitely a video person first and foremost. But in the last 11 years of running my business, I'm now a salesperson more than anything. And the buyer's journey has always been just smart sales, as far as, you have even if you're doing a cold call, that's an awareness message. Consider, if you're talking about the old school before computers or, video existed, you're not, you don't pick up the phone and call someone and say like, hey, here's all the features and benefits of my product. Can I get you to sign a deal? There's a system, a communication system for these messages. So I'd already been thinking and talking about video in like it's awareness content, it's consideration, it's decision content. And you're not going to sell someone in the first meeting. You're just going to make them aware that you exist and then move them. It's all about moving them. That said, I think the biggest aha for us is getting people to, one, understand when you create a video, that one video cannot do all of those things. Right. So don't expect one decision video to also attract, also educate and then convert people. Like you're going to confuse them. It's going to be information overload. And then, yeah, you did make a really expensive brand video that didn't do anything because the messaging wasn't clear. So for us, when we started, I am so with you on the, like, I'm ready to get on the phone and talk about to anyone, because before Retain and before the film and content stuff, it was, I know that's true, but I can't prove it. And now we can, as you know, we can prove it down to the percentage and the dollar spent back with the dollar in. And people, the great thing about it is people intuitively know video's not going anywhere. So it's not like we're selling something that is archaic. It's the opposite. It's like we're selling something that people know they have to buy into. They just haven't yet because they haven't really connected the dots. So for us, it's really getting people to understand that. And I am a big time practice what I preach person. Like I'm not going to do anything. I tell a story that when I first started, it was like my 3rd month in, and I was at a networking meeting telling somebody that they should have video for their website and what it should look like. And he's like, you don't have a video on your website. And I left that meeting like so ashamed, and like, I'm never going to have that happen to me again. Anything I'm pitching or selling, I want to be doing first and can talk about it. And that's just my personality. That's how I sell. That's just me. So that was, we started, like, I know these things can work for other people, but I want to walk the walk. So in the beginning, we started and we went down the, we created awareness content for a SaaS campaign. The biggest issue for that, because there's 2 pieces in my opinion, Mike, you've got like the creative, which is its own thing, and it should be inspired and fun and cool. And then you've got the data, the hardcore metrics, and here's what your audience is responding to and what's not. And really good creative is going to make those numbers work. So it's like this chicken and an egg, maybe that's not the right analogy, but it's this, this dance, I guess, of how do we make creative that responds to people without kind of playing too much to that. And I think on our first campaign, we kind of took the creativity out of it too much, and the numbers reflected that. So we kind of went back to, okay, how the next campaign we did, and these were awareness videos, how do we talk to the people that we're talking to, that I'm talking to in meetings every day? Like, that's also my big pitch is anything you're saying in a sales meeting, say it on video. Like that is, so how do I go back to that? And so we did that, and then we ran the numbers. We let it do its thing, which is no small thing. You'll talk to Seth about that.
Right. That's going to be our next episode. If you're interested in this,
yes,
next time around, we're going to talk to Seth Gray. Gray is his last name.
Gray, I think. Yeah.
We ahead of time went over some numbers, and just getting eyes on your awareness stuff sounds amazing. So
well, exactly. Cause you have like the copy in the ad, that ad headline, all of that is a contributing factor. There's so many different things. This is why having, for us, the film and content and having Tim is so important, because we are never going to master it at that level. Like maybe in a couple years. Right now, we're just like, our minds are being blown every week when we're like, oh, interesting. The first big lesson was the hook. Like, we were getting people, and this is what's beautiful about the data, is like we were getting people, if they got over the first 7 seconds, we were getting a good watch time. So we knew the messaging was solid, which to my, my thesis or my theory was, this is what I'm talking about in sales meetings. People are going to like this stuff. So that's kind of what we went with for the creative. But what we didn't anticipate is in awareness content, you are in a different beast. You are in competition with the scroll. They're not on your website. This isn't a referral. You are literally, the hook matters so much. So we had underestimated that, plainly. And then the data told us, hey, you really underestimated the hook. So we went back and we created, we took a creative course from Peak Creative. Shout out to them. I think that's their name. And they were, they gave us kind of all these hook ideas. And so we had an internal competition because I wrote 3 hooks, or 4, because 12 was the awareness campaign. That's how many videos we ran. I did 4 hooks. My team did 4 hooks. And anyway, we just, again, let the data do the talking. I mean, obviously, when we went in creatively, Seth thought that he was going to win. Stephanie thought that she was going to win. I thought I was going to win. I did win. It's not a flex, kind of. I feel like it just speaks more to my social scrolling because once I heard kind of, oh yeah, this is the stuff that makes me stop. This is what sucks hours of my time when I'm on TikTok or whatever. And that made a big difference. And it's those 1 percentage points that like make these things and make all of these things work in a way that does affect your bottom line. So it's like, okay, yes, your bottom line is cash in the door for any business that's trying to operate. But back it up, you're talking about what is the first thing I say in this awareness video. I mean, that's like a really granular way to like that's a different decision than, you know, how do we get cash in the door? And that's the beauty of the ACDC is it's how does this all work? How do these awareness campaigns make sure you attract the right audience so that you get that 50% and then you can retarget with consideration. So that's kind of what happened with awareness. And now we're on our third round of awareness because we're not quite to, with Tim's projections, we should be at the view rate should be 25% of our audience.
You threw something at the board once.
Yep.
Twice
Nope.
it was a little better. Now the third time. And how did you rearrange? Did you reshoot the content or rethink it altogether? What was
You know what we did is we used AI. This is a great use of AI. We had AI through Tim make notes. Like we loaded in the transcripts. We gave him, and that's a great question for Seth. He knows more about what the back end of that looks like. And just, what cuts can we make to this? We didn't shoot, we maybe shot one thing. A lot of it, you don't have to reshoot. It's really just about like a different graphic or cutting something down or, learning from what's in there that tells you, Ember, I think she's told the story. She's in Retain with us, and she's, they learned from their data that like, oh, people love the stories. So let's start with the stories, so just flip it. It wasn't, necessarily, I think they maybe reshot some stuff, but sometimes it's reshooting. Sometimes it's a graphic. Sometimes it's a voiceover. Sometimes it's cutting. And really it's informed decisions from the data that is telling you what you're trying to accomplish. So that was a great use of the AI tool because we all have opinions on creative and what it could be. And that's very valuable. Like, I'm not going to undersell that.
Which AI tool are you speaking of?
I think he ran it through Claude.
I know he speaks highly of Claude. It is the less likely to look out for humans. Like it is less clouded by social media's protocols, I guess, was what his theory was. It's really interesting, the data. So we are about to launch with one of my new clients, and we've cut all sorts of awareness consideration. I'm going to cut some decision stuff coming up, but the clients aren't quite sure yet. And Tim's like, let's just let the data speak, right? And so earlier at the start of this conversation, you said one video can't tell it all. And so without being seeming overbearing or like I'm really determined to get them to do what I say, I need to sort of work with that client and let them know that their ideas are valid, but let's see if the data changes. So they still are in the idea that they want all of it to do all of it. And I think they kind of want everything to be a testimonial, which is not, that's our end stage stuff. They want us to say good things about what the service is, but that is not exactly what we're trying to get at. And so we'll see how that goes, right? But I hope as we get more of these done and able to create a relationship with this client and other clients that will just build and we'll all have more confidence in what works. I can't wait for the client to see the data and say, oh yeah, that's why that one worked, right? And then we can build on that.
There is, there's a really fun saying we often use. It's not ours. It's like, in the absence of data, we're going to go with opinions. So let's go with mine. That's exactly what I think happens.
Client's always king.
Yep, exactly.
You can otherwise justify. So
that's right. But when you have data, and I think like for that, it's really educating people about, how the funnel works. And hey, if you have 1,000 people knocking on your door and you've put them, they've gotten bids or they're in the sales process, stuff's in the cart. Yeah. Decision content should be the thing you make because you just need to close them maybe. But it's really about understanding your entire buying journey. And this is another thing, like why we really wanted to do this for ourselves, because there's so many variables to this being successful. How is their lead page looking? Is that converting? If that's already converting, these strategies are a no-brainer. But if you have to tweak that, then that could be a messaging problem. That could be a branding messaging problem. Or, so it's like you kind of start to pull the thread on some of this stuff, and you can blame video and it's not video's fault at all. So I think it's a fine line between educating, constantly kind of coming back to the data and painting that picture. I think that's what our industry needs so much more of.
Data.
Yeah.
Data, the
education,
objective view of what is working.
Right.
You know, that just before I got on the call with you, I got an email from another client, and they were looking at a VSL we did for the top of their landing page, and they said, "Why is this 5.5 minutes? Shouldn't this be really short? Because then we'll send longer videos to people who are interested." And I have to get back on and have a meeting and say, well, they're only going to see this VSL after they've seen 15 other videos. And so this is more of the educating the folks we're working with so they understand. And you and I have been thinking nothing but for years.
Years.
But like, we got it. It's hard because everything is like suddenly an immediate masterclass for the client, who is ultimately, I would assume, worried about their investment or justifying that to their people too, right? I mean, like, it's a big leap to throw money down on something and then winging a prayer. So there is that moment where hopefully we get to all just prove it, right?
Two things to that. One is total runtime, I think, is probably the most asked question and the most like easily the most misunderstood thing about the internet. When it comes to video marketing and video in general, I think people do not understand that. Every single time I talk to someone, well, we want this video, we want to tell the story of us, and we want to get camera, and we want it to be like a 45-second because that's all people will watch. I'm like, I don't know if you know how long 45 seconds is, but that's a lot to do in 45 seconds. And by the way,
right, that's a big lift to deliver that in 45 seconds. Forget about it.
Nearly
right?
Impossible. And if it's somebody that is in the bottom of your funnel and they're going to spend money with you, they don't want that video to just be 45 seconds. They want a meteor.
They're ready to watch.
Right.
That's what I'm hoping to explain to this client.
Yes.
Is that by this time they've seen everything. If they're there, it's because they're ready. They're ready to hit go.
That's a different
thing.
thing.
Only know that because they've watched this,
Right.
and this. In order to make those decisions, they're ready.
Right. Those awareness videos, get out of them as quick as you can.
One that we do, I know this is your thing, you talked about it earlier, is audience. So defining that audience for the client, that sometimes they have to sit down and go, well, it could be this, it could be this. And so we pick one and sort of design content that is super helpful, because then we have this sort of point of view, and who are we directing what that message is to, along the lines of the funnel that we talk of.
Yep.
Boy, it can't be more exciting. So what is the latest with your own funnel now? Are you hitting go on decision stage stuff? I think Seth was.
Not yet. We're in the middle of tweaking consideration. Mm-hmm. And consideration, the difference between at least in these funnels, is the consideration stage. We're now on our third iteration. And, to like a lot of this stuff, we just went, we had stuff that was already made and we tried that first. And we really just wanted to get the data. Like you can absolutely go faster on this. For us, like I said, we wanted to understand every piece and part, and all of those things that I'm talking about in terms of the landing page and the messaging, that's coming from me and my company. We've had to really suss that out and make, like, this isn't the ads problem. This isn't the videos problem. This is the fact that when they come to the landing page, they think we are a online course platform. Like, they're not hiring us as a video production crew, because we're talking about Video Marketing 101, which is our kind of our it's our, education tool to help me build authority and to answer all those DIY questions. And kind of what I talked about at the beginning of this podcast about, you can use an iPhone, you can use Zoom. Like, I want to answer those questions. I want to be that resource for people, but that's not my business. That's not my bread and butter. So if you're sending people to a landing page that then they see a course for sale, like, that's, again, not the video's fault. So that's probably why it's taken us so much longer on this.
Redeveloping your message.
I
have been in development of my own website and then another landing page for months, because I keep I always have a web presence, but I keep refiguring what's going on. And the one I'm about to launch, I'm quite happy with, and we've the web guy and I have really figured out, how do we make sure people don't go away? By the time they've gotten here, they only want to know what I've got to offer. Let's not send them anywhere else.
Right, totally.
And that is little things like, how do we get them to play this video when they have so many other options?
Right.
Then when they scroll down, what do they see and what do they get? Do they understand that we're solving problems for them? Do they understand that they had a problem and we could solve that for them? They understand that we have all the case studies and the cred to make that happen. We have the team to make that. It should be a win-win-win, but we'll see. The data will happen. That leads me into the question I had for you. When you have launched your awareness and consideration, they always have a chance to go to your landing page, right?
Yes.
So are you getting numbers anyway? Are you getting organic? Well, it's not organic, it's paid content. But, if it works the way it's supposed to work, they go through all that system. They see a
Exactly. Well, and that was the thing.
awareness, consideration, decision, but they don't have to. If they like it enough at awareness, bingo, bango, they can hit go, right?
100%. And that's how it should be. But like most people need more, especially if it's cold. Like for my warm audiences, yeah, we've had leads come through that have been seeing me for years. And, it's a different story. They're, more willing to take a shot on me than someone that they don't know me at all. They're only getting my content. You've got to retarget in that scenario aggressively. That's the difference between a warm lead and a cold lead. Plainly. And I think for us, like one of the things that we found, we have our VSLs on our landing page. We're measuring how many people come to the landing page. Of those people, how many watch? Well, if 4 people are watching the video is doing its job, watching to 90%. This was a metric recently for one of our landing pages. They're watching at 90%. So the 3 people that actually clicked on the video liked the videos. The video did its job.
And it wasn't your brother, your grandma, and your sister, or was it?
Yeah, no, that was actually good cold traffic. The problem was most of the people coming to the website were not clicking on the video. That's not the video's fault. They haven't even played it. So that's a tagline thing. It could be a tagline thing or it could be an audience thing. And those are things you have to suss out. And this is the other thing I was going to add. I think, yes, you have to have the tools and the retain and Tim and all of that. And you have to have the right creatives. And I do think at the end of the day, it's about like hiring the right company for our clients or for us that are going to be tenacious to work through these things and be smart enough to say it is the data that's going to tell us. And then we have to pivot quickly and we have to get that done and we have to be on the same page. Like that is all like, I think just at least for mainstream, like that's who you want to be working with. You don't want to work with a company that says like, oh, we're going to do this and it's going to be no thing. We're going to get you this, buy this no matter what. I think that's really false advertising to a certain extent because there are so many variables and nuances. You want a partner. You want a team member that's like, here's what we know it takes and we're going to work on it together to get there.
A lot of what you just said reminds me that it is also important, at least in my experience, it sounds like you're doing a similar thing, is to niche. I've always been worried that if I'm too focused on what clients I want to target, that it will cut me out of all sorts of other loops. And in the last year, I have really, really focused on labor organizations. And you know what? I'm passionate about them. I know the language. I know what it takes to move those people, which means I know what kind of content is going to work right off the bat. So interesting warm leads. I'm hoping that once I get that landing page together, in so many ways, it will be like a second part of me speaking before they get to speak to me. I mean, the VSL, they're going to get to see my face and talk,
right?
See what I sound like and what I have to offer. And then by the time they get on the phone with me, hopefully we're old friends, right? I think that niching is something I've always been worried about, and it just makes so much sense.
Totally.
I think for me, it means niching in a way that working with clients you want to work with. I see somebody I want to help with what I do, and that makes it all work well. I've worked with clients that I don't love. I don't love what they stand for, and I'm really trying to keep that in check these days, right? There you go.
Because if you're doing your job right, you are amplifying whatever they're doing.
Right. Exactly. That's what I mean. I honestly feel like some of the stuff I've done the last couple of months is like amplifying a really great cause that I believe.
Yeah.
Beth, this has been so great. I have a rule where we don't let people go on too long, and I don't want our people to get bored. I always leave our guests with the last say. Do you have a golden nugget for us? Anything that seems relevant to anything you want to say?
Anything to anything. I'm gonna
anything to anything. Often is about strategy and video, but really that could be about eggs and chickens. It doesn't matter.
When it comes to this, I think that for me, everything we've been talking about, like the thing that comes up, right, wrong, or indifferent, is, the path of least resistance to get you on the path. I think with anybody that's thinking about doing video, like the best thing you can do is create a video. What's the quickest way you can create a video? Go that route, get your data, iterate, like keep it moving. Like that's the keep it moving. I think that's what I want to say, because video's changing so much. We as humans change so much. Like the advice that we got for social media even a year and a half ago, I'm getting the opposite advice now. You know, like post less, don't do as much. So you just
Right.
have to keep it moving, and you have to be willing to take the risk, make the creative, do the thing as quickly as you can so that you can iterate and keep it moving. I've said it.
Get data, get feedback,
Yes.
rearrange,
Yes.
do it again. I always would say to uh, students coming up in this field and another field that do that if you sit back and talk about what you're going to do, that doesn't make you any better. But if you go out there and make it happen,
Yep.
I think
There.
we're on the same track.
One last thing. There's this analogy I give about that people sometimes think about video as something you can learn, I don't know, from a video or from a book, but it is like swimming, golfing, or skiing. Like you have to get on skis, you have to jump in a pool, you have to swing a club. You cannot learn video. You cannot be excellent at video. You cannot amplify whatever message you want to amplify unless you go out there and make a few mistakes, get scared, feel vulnerable, all of that. So what can you do to make yourself take that next step?
Beth Klepper, ladies and gentlemen, listeners out there in the world, you have listened to another episode of The Curious Creative. Thank you for being here. And again, stay tuned for the next episode. After Beth, you're going to listen to Seth, Beth's right-hand person on data campaigns right now. Really exciting. We're going to talk about actual numbers. We'll catch you later. Beth, thanks again.
Thank you. This was so fun, Mike.